This is the all-new for 2013 Lexus ES300H. For 2013, the Lexus ES is longer and wider than it was before, and that's because this car no longer shares its platform and hardpoints with the Toyota Camry. Instead, it shares them with the all-new Toyota Avalon. That means we get a much bigger back seat, we get a longer wheelbase, and of course we get a wider body overall. Now, before you just start calling the Lexus ES the Lexus Avalon, like people used to call the old ES the Lexus Camry, Toyota really has not created a simply badge-engineered version of a Toyota vehicle since that very first edition of the Lexus ES back in the 90s. And ever since then, every ES platform and its Toyota platform mate have been co-developed together. Now, they really don't share that many parts out here on the outside or inside the vehicle. Really, the sharing just ends up being in crash structures, suspension components. The drivetrain, of course, is common between the ES and the Toyota Avalon, and of course the existing Toyota Camry and Camry Hybrid. And they also share some other minor things like, racks and the rails for the seats, for the moonroof. They share similar electronic systems behind the scenes, but nothing that you really touch or feel in the vehicle or outside the vehicle is exactly the same as it would be in the Toyota product. Up front, we of course get the Lexus signature spindle grille, which is slowly spreading across the Lexus lineup. We of course get a Lexus logo with a little blue outline there because this is a hybrid. We get our LED daytime running lights and sort of a Nike swoosh across the front of the headlight there. Now, this grille is kind of working for me these days. I wasn't quite sure about it when I saw the Lexus GS debut, but it does look very good both on the ES and the new LS as well. Still not quite sure how I feel about it on the Lexus RX, but we're going to be having one of those in a few weeks, so be sure to check back with us and see what we think then. Under the hood of the ES, you'll find two different drivetrain options for 2013. Things start off with the ES350, which uses a 268 horsepower 3.5-liter V6. That's mated to a 6-speed Toyota automatic transaxle, and that sends power to the front wheels only. This particular vehicle is the ES300H, which means we have the 2.5-liter Atkinson cycle 4-cylinder engine borrowed from the Toyota Camry Hybrid, and that's mated to the Lexus hybrid drive system over here on this side. Now, this is essentially the same concept and exactly the same unit, really, as the Toyota Camry's hybrid Synergy drive system. It's just been relabeled for Lexus. The engine plus the electric motors together are good for 200 system horsepower and an unspecified amount of torque, according to Lexus, although we estimate by the 0 to 60 time of this vehicle that it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 to 220 pound-feet of torque. In terms of parts quality, the Lexus ES has definitely gone up a notch from the outgoing model, with perfect panel gaps, perfect seams, some really gorgeous bamboo wood trim in our particular hybrid model. Now, this dashboard is not a stitched dashboard as it might appear to you. The Lexus ES just gets an injection molded dashboard, and then they run a sewing machine along here to give it real stitching on that injection molded dashboard. So this is really just one piece here. Now, that's different than both the Toyota Avalon, which does have a stitched pleather dashboard, as well as some of the upper trim levels of the more expensive models of the Lexus family. But this particular dashboard is likely to last a little bit longer in terms of durability because it's that injection molded plastic that just tends to last a little bit longer. Keeping in mind that the Lexus ES is not the most expensive model of Lexus, we do get some hard plastics here in the center console that you won't find in other Lexus models. The lower portions of the dashboard are hard plastic as well. And we have a somewhat small glove box over here. Our Lexus ES has one of the nicest Lexus corporate steering wheels that's available. Every seam is very nicely done on the steering wheels. You can see there's a whole lot going on here with the satin nickel effect trim and this black plastic trim and the leather and the airbag cover, etc. And all these seams are executed perfectly. They're all nice and level, nothing to catch your finger on, etc. on the steering wheel. We do have the optional wood and leather steering wheel that's heated, but only this leather portion on either side of the steering wheel gets the heating. However, this bamboo trim is exquisite. In fact, I think this is probably one of the most attractive steering wheels I have held lately. Front seat comfort in the ES is very good. Our particular model has the optional power tilt telescoping steering wheel with memory. That's not a standard feature in the ES, unfortunately. Now, the driver's seat has a decent range of motion, although the lumbar support is only adjustable in and out, not up and down in this seat. So you might want to spend some time in the driver's seat or the front passenger seat to make sure they're comfortable for you. However, again, in our particular vehicle, our passenger seat has the same range of motion and is of course also heated just like the driver's seat. That makes it a bit more comfortable for your front passengers. The Lexus ES is kind of an interesting car in the luxury segment because of course this is a front-wheel drive vehicle. Now I am discounting Acura in this of course because Acura is really more of a near luxury brand. They don't have anything that truly competes head-on with a full lineup from the Germans like Lexus does. Of course, Lexus has their E-Class competitor, their S-Class competitor, and the GS and the LS respectively, and a full portfolio of other vehicles jammed in there as well. But this ES is kind of interesting. And it's interesting because we get 40 inches of legroom back here. So this is an enormous back seat. This is, full-size American sedan kind of rear seat legroom and decent rear seat headroom because of the profile of the ES. It's not overly swoopy like many cars are. But because it's a front-wheel drive car and there is absolutely no all-wheel drive option in this vehicle, we have essentially no middle hump. So this middle seat is suitable for a 6-foot-tall passenger, which is kind of unique. And my head is brushing the ceiling, but only just, so you could probably fit a 6'1", 6'2" passenger back here without difficulty. Now this front seat here is adjusted for a 6'5" passenger that we had in the vehicle. As you can see, I still have a couple inches of legroom left. Now one thing that 6'5" passenger did want me to share, however, is that they were unable to sit terribly upright in this vehicle. That's a common problem, however, for taller people, in that they have to lean back a little bit, especially with vehicles that have a moonroof. In the back of the hybrid ES300H, we don't get any folding seats because, of course, that battery is back there occupying all that space. We do, however, get adjustable headrests. We have some fairly decent cup holders here in this nice large center armrest. And we have vents here in the center console that can be closed and adjusted fairly easily. Now, as with most vehicles, plastics do get a bit cheaper as you go to the rear. So we have hard plastics here in the center console, and we have some hard plastics over here on the door as well. Although this nice bamboo wood trim really helps soften the blow for me. The regular Lexus ES has a fairly large trunk, which is good for this hybrid model because even though that battery pack is at the back of this trunk, right behind the rear seats, we still have a decent amount of trunk space in here. This is the largest bag you can carry on a domestic flight, so you can see you can carry several of them in this trunk quite easily, although this trunk opening is more of a trunk hatch than a true trunk lid. One novelty is that under this little panel here, we get a regular donut spare tire rather than a can of Fix-A-Flat, which is a nice touch in a hybrid vehicle these days. Now, getting in and out of the trunk is fairly easy, although this trunk hatch again is kind of small, and the trunk is fairly nicely upholstered, and these trunk hinges are covered with plastic, which is kind of a nice touch. We have a handle right here, which makes it easy to close the trunk lid and helps this vehicle get a solid 7 out of 10 score in our exclusive Trunk Comfort Index. Let's take a look at the Lexus Enform system now. This is Toyota's navigation and infotainment system. Now, our particular model has the optional navigation system, which means we get an 8-inch screen up in the dash instead of the 7-inch screen that the base model gets. Now, all models use this joystick controller that's here in the center console. As you can see, it's right next to the shifter. And it has, it's not just a joystick, it also has haptic feedback. So it clicks into the location. As you can see, it also centers on the buttons that are on the screen. So we're looking at a screen here in the dashboard that has only 2 options. As you can see, the little joystick mousey move thing there, I don't know what you're going to call that, snaps to those buttons on the screen, and then it actually also clicks down to enter so you can change screens on the display. We of course get a menu button, we get a zoom in and out and track up and down buttons for serve several different purposes on the screen, and of course we get a shortcut button to go back to the map. We were unable to find a base Lexus ES on dealer lots near us to show you the 7-inch basic system, so our particular model has this optional 8-inch screen here with navigation. Now, it appears to be that most ES models that you'll find on dealer lots are going to have this particular system. It seems fairly rare to actually find a absolute stripper model ES with no options, and this system is bundled with a wide variety of different option packages on the ES. So this main menu should look familiar if you've seen recent Lexus models before. It's fairly similar to the widescreen setup on the Lexus LS and the Lexus GS. We of course have our navigation, we have info and apps. This is what's part of the Lexus Enform system, is smartphone app integration like Pandora, etc. Because this system is based on Lexus's more expensive and Toyota's more expensive navigation products, we do get XM data services, so XM Sports, Stock, Nav, Weather, etc. Those do require a subscription after the initial subscription that comes with your vehicle. Since this is a hybrid, we of course get a fuel consumption screen with a past record, and you can update that and clear it anytime you want. And of course the usual energy flow, which shows your motor and gas engine and battery back there in the trunk. Back over here, you can see we also get traffic incidents. Again, this is provided by XM Data Services as well as Lexus Insider, which is sort of Lexus news and updates for your vehicle. If we go back to the main menu here, you can see we have setup options for your vehicle. You can change vehicle settings there. We have HD radio in most models of the ES. We also get XM satellite radio. And over here on the media screen, you can see that we have access to our Bluetooth audio as well as our USB devices. The system is fully functional with a wide variety of USB and iOS devices, and I'm going to plug in my current iPhone 5 here so we can take a look at that interface. As you can see, if we select it on the menu and turn the volume down, we do have full access via the browse command to our iPod playlists, artists, albums, etc. And part of this system is Toyota's new voice command system. So using the steering wheel voice command button, you can now command playlists, artists, and song titles via your voice on this system. It is very polished, and it seems to work better than Ford Sync, in general. And the voice commands are a little bit more pleasing to the ear than Ford Sync. However, the system does have an interesting limitation, and if you have more than about 3,000 songs on your USB or your iDevice, you can't search for songs directly. You can only search for artists and playlists. If we go back to the main menu, you can see that we have our climate control options here. Those options are mostly duplicated on these physical buttons lower in the dash as well. And we also have our typical phone interface. The Lexus also provides text-to-speech as well as speech-to-text and with canned text messages in the system if your phone supports it, and my particular phone does not support it at the moment. Over here on the map screen, you can see that Lexus is still using the same mapping software that they've been using for some time in Lexus models. All the buttons are exactly the same as they were in previous models, only as you can see, they're no longer touch buttons. You have to use this little joystick to navigate and use them. There's no 3D view in this map. We only get north up and direction heading up, but honestly, that's fine with me because I really don't care for those 3D views, especially the ones that are just a flat map that's trying to imitate 3D that don't do any topographical information. Compared to iDrive, this map is quite boring, honestly, but no one else in this segment really has a map that's any better than this either. So this is very average in this particular segment. The best competitor really directly for the Lexus ES300H Hybrid would be the Lincoln MKZ Hybrid, and the MKZ's My Ford Touch system looks a bit snazzier, but it's nowhere near as responsive as this system. As you can see, zooming in and out on this particular map is pretty quick, and on the My Ford Touch system it's pretty slow. Over here on the map mode button, you can see we also have the option of putting fuel consumption or audio on this other side of the map screen, reducing the map to just this left portion of the screen. All Lexus ES models with the 8-inch screen also get a backup camera, as you can see. The backup camera is also optional on the base 7-inch infotainment only system that doesn't give you navigation. Overall, I rate the 2013 update of Lexus Enform pretty highly. I do appreciate the app integration so you can do your streaming audio like Pandora through the system. I actually kind of like the fact that these mapping systems have not changed very much, because this mapping system is fairly easy to see, the graphics are fairly clear, and it's fairly responsive. In navigation systems, the prettier graphics can be nice, but I really don't see any extra value in things like the satellite imagery that Audi's MMI brings to the table. I'd rather have something that's fairly easy to use. The media interface is quite nice, and the ability to voice command your tunes is a good change for Lexus. The only thing that I really have a problem with is this joystick entry method, because if we're going to enter an address here, this joystick just becomes a little bit of a liability in my opinion. You can only do this, of course, while stopped, but using the joystick to wander around a keyboard like this if you're going to enter a city name just seems to take a bit more time than some of the knobs or the touchscreen arrangements that are more common in this particular segment. Hybrids are all about fuel economy, so let's talk numbers first. Lexus rates this vehicle for 40 miles per gallon city, 39 highway, with a combined rating of 40 miles per gallon. Now that's a notable amount lower than the Lincoln MKZ Hybrid, but there's a caveat there, because in our testing of this particular vehicle, we've been averaging about 39 miles per gallon in our week of mixed driving, and I do have to go up and over a 2,200-foot mountain pass to get home. That's much better, in terms of its real rating versus its EPA rating than the Lincoln Hybrid, which really has trouble getting its EPA ratings. And in our test of the slightly lighter Ford Fusion Hybrid, which is rated for 47, 47, 47, our week in that vehicle was notably lower than its 47 mile per gallon EPA rating, and this vehicle is much closer. In our testing, this is about double what the ES350 gets, again thanks to that 2,200-foot mountain pass that I have to go up and over. If you're just doing level driving on a level freeway, for instance, in my particular area from 101 around 85 all the way up to 101 and 92, then we averaged about 47 miles per gallon in this vehicle, which is extremely good. In terms of performance, thanks to the boost from those electric motors, our ES300 scooted to 60 in 7.24 seconds, which is a hair faster than the Lincoln MKZ Hybrid or the Ford Fusion Hybrid in our tests. As a brand, Lexus has long been associated with glassy smooth rides, fairly soft handling, and fairly numb steering. Now the numb steering is still here, of course, because we have electric power steering, but because everything in the industry is getting numb as well, it really is not as pronounced as it used to be in this particular vehicle. Now Lexus has spent a decent amount of time in this generation of the ES to get it to be a little bit sportier than before. Now that does take a slight toll in terms of the glassy smooth ride, especially at low speeds where you definitely feel the road a little bit more in this ES. Now no one's really going to take their ES sedan corner carving, although this sedan does handle that a little bit better than the 2012 model. Of course, we have the hybrid here, which means we have low rolling resistance tires and somewhat narrow tires. When you compare it to something like a Buick LaCrosse or Chrysler 300, etc., which means that the ES300 is not going to handle quite as well as some of the competition. But that competition is pretty difficult to nail down because, of course, the Lincoln MKZ is considerably smaller than this vehicle. So I really wouldn't compare this exactly with a Lincoln MKZ just because of its size. Now, in terms of price and feature content, the MKZ and the ES300H come out somewhat even. There are a few more gadgets and gizmos available on the Lincoln MKZ, and it is a little bit cheaper, but that back seat is considerably smaller. It's about 4 inches smaller. The car isn't quite as wide. It's not quite as comfortable, and the handling and suspension, it's a little bit softer in this particular vehicle, the Lexus ES, than the Lincoln MKZ. So if you want that luxurious, soft, isolated ride, this would be the vehicle of choice. Like the Camry, the ES can drive electric only up to about 42 miles an hour, depending on your state of battery charge, how steep the hill is, what mode this drive selector button is, and of course how hard you're pushing on the gas pedal. We do have a little EV mode button here in the dashboard so that you can sneak up on unsuspecting pedestrians, but that will really only operate up to about 25 miles an hour, and you have to be extremely ginger on the throttle to use it. If drivetrain smoothness is a big purchasing factor for you, then definitely get the ES300 over the 350, because this has, of course, an eCVT, which is how some publications try and explain how hybrid synergy drive works. Again, we'll have another video on that later, but all you really need to know is that this drivetrain is extremely smooth. There are no shift points in this vehicle like you would get with a regular CVT. Acceleration happens very smoothly and very evenly. Climbing up and down hills is very smooth without any noticeable gear shifts as well. So who is the ES300H for? Well, it's for that person that values fuel efficiency first, because of course this vehicle does get a true 40 miles per gallon in mixed driving in our tests. Now I do live in a fairly hilly climate, and so we've been getting about 39, which is still very good. If you live in an area that's more level, then you should expect slightly higher numbers than that. Now, of course, it's also for those people that value rear seat accommodations because the back seat in this car is very large. You get 40 inches of rear legroom. You can fit 3 adults across in this back seat. And because it's a front-wheel drive car, there's no hump back there to contend with, unlike things like the Mercedes S-Class and BMW 7 Series, which are fairly large, but they have a fairly large hump as well. We have a fairly decent trunk in this vehicle, although it doesn't fold flat. And of course, the pricing isn't too bad either. Our particular ES here is listing for about $45,000 as we have equipped, and the ES in general ranges just under $39,000 to just over $50,000, which is fairly reasonable in the luxury segment. Now, the ES300H is about $2,700 to $2,800 more expensive than the ES350, but owing to the fuel economy, depending on your climate and your driving style, you should repay that in about 4 to 5 years. Again, I'm Alex Dykes, and that's been our quick look at the 2013 Lexus ES300H. Of course, like this video, subscribe to our YouTube feed, go friend us on Facebook, go check out thetruthaboutcars.com, and if you have any particular questions or review requests, then you can always email us at editors@thetruthaboutcars.com.